The stars in the galaxy blinked brightly against the vast black void. It was just another quiet day in the deep expanse of space, until an urgent distress signal sliced through the calm silence like a knife. On board the Earth Defense Fleet, the crew members were working diligently, monitoring space traffic when the signal suddenly appeared. The voice crackling through the speakers was garbled, full of static, but one thing was clear: it was a scream. A human scream. A girl's scream. The kind of sound that would freeze the blood of anyone who heard it. The transmission was faint, distorted, but undeniably real. It was a cry for help. The crew members glanced nervously at each other, not sure whether it was some sort of trick or a genuine distress signal. In that moment, as the last faint echoes of the girl's voice faded away, the crew knew they were no longer dealing with routine matters. The signal's source had come from deep within the heart of Galactic Empire space, an empire known for its cruelty, its control, and its unforgiving nature. The voice on the other end wasn't just any voice. It was the voice of Elara, a human girl who had been captured by the Empire. The Earth's military high command received the transmission next. It was immediately passed along to the highest-ranking officials, and a grave silence settled over them. The message was clear. The Galactic Empire had taken a human, a girl no older than 20, and subjected her to unspeakable horrors. The screams they'd heard were just a small piece of the atrocities she was enduring. The Empire had kidnapped her for one purpose: to experiment on her. The cruelty they inflicted on her was a reflection of their cold-hearted authoritarian regime. What was more disturbing was the nature of these experiments. The Empire's advanced technologies were so sophisticated that they could alter DNA, reprogram human minds, and manipulate biological processes in ways that humans could barely comprehend. The Empire didn't care about mercy or ethics. They saw sentient beings as tools, and this girl was no exception. The message that Earth had intercepted hinted at horrible things: torture, manipulation, and a disregard for life. It was the kind of thing that made your skin crawl, knowing that a helpless human being was the subject of such cruelty. The military leaders of Earth didn't need to be reminded of the Empire's power. The Galactic Empire had been a dark force in the universe for centuries, reigning over countless planets, destroying worlds in the name of order. Their technology was advanced beyond anything Earth had ever seen. They had armies of robots, drones, and machines that made their military an unstoppable force. But Earth wasn't about to back down. The message had been received, and now Earth had a choice to make. The leaders of Earth gathered for an emergency meeting. The silence in the room was deafening as they looked at the cold data that filled the screen in front of them. Earth had always been an underdog in the eyes of the galactic community. They were a young species, struggling to find their place in a vast universe, dominated by powerful empires and cold technology. The idea that a human girl could be so helpless in the face of such power made their hearts burn with rage. The question now was, what could they do? Could they mount a rescue mission to save Elara, or would they cower before the might of the Empire? Could they afford to risk everything for one human life? The conversation was heated. Some members of the council argued that the loss of one human wasn't worth the potential cost of an all-out war with the Galactic Empire. But others, those who had witnessed the brutality of the Empire firsthand, knew the truth. If Earth didn't take action now, they would be sending a message to the Empire that humanity could be crushed at any time. The decision was made quickly but resolutely. They couldn't turn their backs on one of their own. Elara had been taken, and it was time to bring her back. The fight for her freedom would not just be a battle to save one human girl. It would be a battle to show the Empire that Earth would not back down, no matter the odds. With military precision, the orders were sent out. The Earth Defense Fleet would assemble, and a team of elite soldiers would be sent on a mission to rescue Elara from the clutches of the Empire. Ethan, a battle-hardened veteran soldier, was one of the first to volunteer. His younger sister, Elara, was the girl who had been taken, and he would not rest until she was safe. Ethan was a man of few words, but the anguish in his eyes told a story that no words could ever express. The thought of his sister, alone and suffering at the hands of the Empire, was unbearable. But he was a soldier. He knew what needed to be done. His team was composed of the best and brightest, engineers, tacticians, and warriors, all ready for the most dangerous mission of their lives. They were tasked with infiltrating the Empire's territory, navigating its heavily guarded space stations, and finally reaching Ilara before it was too late. The odds were stacked against them, but they were Earth's last hope. They couldn't afford to fail. As the fleet prepared for departure, Ethan met with his team in the command center. The tension in the room was palpable. Everyone knew that this mission would be the hardest they had ever faced. But there was no turning back. The Empire had crossed a line, and now Earth was going to show them that they couldn't get away with it. "We're not just going in there to save one person," Ethan said, his voice low and steady. "We're going in there to send a message. We're not afraid of them. We'll show them that Earth fights for its own, no matter the cost." The team nodded in agreement. They were ready. The stakes couldn't be higher. The fate of Ilara and the future of Earth depended on them. The countdown to launch began. The fleet's engines roared to life, propelling them forward into the unknown. As they left Earth's atmosphere and entered the cold expanse of space, the weight of their mission settled in. They weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for a message. That humanity would not be bullied, that humanity would not be a slave to any empire, and that humanity would not let its own be left behind. As the fleet sped toward the heart of Galactic Empire space, Ethan's thoughts drifted to his sister. He could still hear her voice from the distress signal, still hear her cry for help. He vowed to bring her back, no matter what it took. The mission had begun, and there was no turning back. The fight for Ilara's life had begun. The next few hours would be critical. Earth's fleet would have to navigate the labyrinthine depths of Galactic Empire space, avoiding patrols, dodging Imperial warships, and ensuring they didn't alert the Empire to their presence. But for now, they had the element of surprise on their side. They had one chance to make it right, and they would make it count. As the ships accelerated into the vast unknown, all Ethan could think of was the promise he had made, to rescue Ilara, and to make the Empire regret ever laying a hand on her. The stars ahead of him were filled with uncertainty, but one thing was clear: the battle for humanity's honor had begun. The silence of deep space was shattered by the hum of Earth's defense fleet preparing for one of its most critical missions. The assembly was nothing short of spectacular, a display of humanity's growing strength and its willingness to risk everything for one of its own. The massive warships, gleaming under the distant stars, were equipped with the latest in military technology. Cloaking devices, designed to make the fleet invisible to the most advanced alien sensors, hummed quietly. AI-controlled warships, armed to the teeth with advanced weapon systems, stood ready for battle. These ships had been designed for one purpose: to infiltrate and take down the Galactic Empire. Ethan stood at the forefront of the preparations, his mind focused and determined. He had seen wars, battles, and destruction, but nothing compared to the anger he felt now. His sister, Ilara, was still out there, being tortured by the Empire. Every minute that passed without her rescue was a minute closer to losing her forever. But Ethan was not the type to give up easily. He had survived countless battles, and this would be no different. It couldn't be. The team that Ethan led was equally impressive. Each member of the squad had been handpicked for their exceptional skills. The technology they would use was nothing short of miraculous. Ethan's team showcased their advanced equipment, with every piece designed to ensure that they could move through the heart of enemy territory without being detected. One of the most impressive technologies they had were the invisibility cloaks. When activated, they rendered their users completely invisible to both the naked eye and any detection systems the Empire might have in place. It was a game changer, but it wasn't foolproof. The cloaks could only last for a limited time, and moving too quickly or too much could disrupt the field, revealing them to the enemy. Still, the technology was their best shot at slipping past the Empire's defenses undetected. Ethan was also equipped with an AI-enhanced combat suit. It was a marvel of human engineering, designed to give him the edge in battle. The suit provided enhanced strength, speed, and durability. It also had a built-in AI that could process battle data in real time, offering tactical advice and even helping to predict enemy movements. The suit allowed Ethan to function at the peak of human potential, giving him a fighting chance against the Empire's vast technological superiority. And then there were the stealth drones, small, nimble machines designed to scout ahead and gather intelligence. These drones were equipped with the same cloaking technology, allowing them to sneak through enemy lines and report back without ever being detected. They would be the eyes and ears of Ethan's team, guiding them through the dangers that lay ahead. As the fleet continued its preparations, Ethan couldn't help but think about Ilara. He remembered the days when they were children, playing in the fields outside their home. She had always been so full of life, so fearless. He smiled at the memory, but it quickly faded. The thought of her being tortured, locked away somewhere in the Empire's clutches, made his heart ache. He had to save her. He couldn't. He wouldn't let her down. A flashback filled his mind. And for a moment, it was as if time had stopped. He was no longer standing in the command center surrounded by soldiers and warships. Instead, he was back in his childhood home, sitting on the porch with his little sister, Ilara. She was young, no older than 10, and she looked up at him with wide eyes. "Ethan, do you think I'll ever be as strong as you?" Ethan chuckled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You're already strong, Ilara. You've got the heart of a warrior. Don't ever forget that." Ilara smiled, her eyes full of trust. "I think you're the strongest person I know." Those words stuck with him, and even though it had been years since they had been said, they still echoed in his mind. Ilara had always believed in him, always looked up to him. Now it was his turn to be the strong one, to rescue her, no matter what it took. The mission was critical, but Ethan wasn't alone. His team was filled with people who shared the same resolve, the same desire to protect their loved ones and their planet. They were ready to face whatever the Empire had in store. They knew the risks, but they also knew the cost of failure. If they didn't succeed, Ilara, and countless others, would suffer. The strategic planning for the mission was intense. Earth's intelligence network had managed to gather some crucial information about the Galactic Empire's operations. It was enough to know that their main hub, where Ilara was being held, was well defended. It wasn't just a single, isolated space station. It was a fortress, surrounded by layers of defenses and guarded by some of the most advanced military forces in the galaxy. The Empire's forces were vast, and their technology was unparalleled. They controlled everything with an iron fist, using AI and robotic soldiers to enforce their rule. If the team were to succeed, they needed to move quickly and decisively. The last thing they could afford was being discovered by the Empire before they reached their objective. "We'll need to move under the radar," said one of the team's tacticians, a woman named Mara, who was a genius when it came to strategy. "Our best chance is to infiltrate their defenses without them knowing we're there. Once we're inside their perimeter, we'll have to fight our way to Ilara." Ethan nodded, his mind racing with the possibilities. He trusted Mara's judgment. If anyone could lead them through the labyrinth of the Empire's defenses, it was her. But they would have to be careful. One mistake, one misstep, and everything could go wrong. Mara's voice cut through his thoughts. "We'll use the cloaks to get close. We'll send the drones ahead to scout the area. Once we've got a clear path, we make our move. Stealth is key here, and speed. We can't afford to get bogged down in a firefight." The plan was set. The team would slip past the Empire's outer defenses using their cloaking technology. They would infiltrate the heart of the Empire's operations, find Ilara, and get out. But it wasn't going to be easy. The Empire's sensors were some of the best in the galaxy, and their patrols were relentless. If they were detected, they would have to fight their way out. and that would mean certain death for everyone involved. As the team gathered for the final briefing, Ethan's thoughts returned to Ilara. He wasn't just fighting for her life. He was fighting for their future, the future of humanity. If they failed, the message would be clear. Earth was weak, vulnerable, and ripe for conquest. The Galactic Empire would see this as an opportunity to crush humanity once and for all. But Ethan wasn't going to let that happen. He had fought too hard, lost too much, to let humanity fall. He would bring Ilara back. He would show the Empire that they couldn't mess with Earth. With a final, determined look at his team, Ethan said, "Let's make sure they know we're not just a small planet on the edge of the galaxy. We're Earth, and we fight for our own." As the fleet readied for launch, there was no turning back. The mission was set in motion. The fight for Ilara, and for humanity's place in the galaxy, had begun. The battle had begun, and it was unlike anything Ethan had ever faced. The stealth ships, cloaked in near invisibility, silently made their way through the vast expanse of space, drawing closer to the heart of the Galactic Empire's territory. Ethan's team, a blend of the most skilled soldiers and cutting-edge technology, moved with precision, guided by the intelligence they had gathered. Their mission was clear: penetrate the Empire's defenses, rescue Ilara, and escape. Failure was not an option. Inside their cloaked vessels, the team remained in focused silence, their senses heightened as they prepared for the coming battle. The stealth technology was their most powerful weapon, and as long as they could remain undetected, they would have the element of surprise. Their AI drones, small and nimble, buzzed around the ships, scanning for any signs of danger, their advanced sensors far superior to anything the Empire had ever seen. The space around them was dark, with only the faint glow of distant stars providing any light. It was an eerie, quiet moment, one that only heightened the tension among the team. They knew that at any moment, they could be detected. The Empire was ruthless, its AI-driven ships designed to hunt down anything that posed a threat. The chances of success were slim, but Ethan refused to let fear control him. His sister, Ilara, was counting on him. Failure was not an option. Suddenly, the calm was shattered by a distant blip on the radar. One of the Empire's ships had appeared on the outer edges of their sensor range. The team's breath caught in their throats. It was only a matter of time before they were detected. Ethan's hand moved to the console, quickly relaying commands to his team. "We've been spotted," Ethan muttered, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "Prepare to engage. We'll take them out before they have the chance to alert the Empire." His team nodded in unison, their faces hardening with resolve. They were ready. The first strike came swiftly. Ethan's ship, along with the others in his squadron, fired a barrage of missiles, aimed directly at the Empire's ship. But the Empire wasn't going down so easily. In a flash of bright light, enemy ships began to emerge from behind asteroids, appearing from hidden corners of the sector. The battle was on. The cloaking technology had worked, at least for a moment. But now that the battle had begun, there was no going back. The Empire's ships were formidable, their weapons designed to crush anything in their path. Yet Ethan and his team weren't ordinary soldiers. They had come prepared. The AI drones darted through the darkness, weaving between enemy fire with precision. Each missile fired by the Empire was met with a counterattack, the drones jamming their systems and confusing their targeting. Ethan's ship remained on course, darting through the space between asteroids, carefully avoiding the Empire's firing range. It was a deadly game of cat and mouse, but they were winning. For now. "Bonner, take out those drones," Ethan barked, his voice cold and focused. Bonner, a large man with a reputation for being one of the best pilots in the fleet, responded instantly. His ship veered to the right, dodging a blast from an enemy ship and returning fire with pinpoint accuracy. Bonner's movements were almost fluid as he guided his ship through a series of rapid maneuvers, dodging incoming missiles while firing off guided projectiles at the Empire's drones. His ship's AI worked in tandem with his instincts, and together, they obliterated the enemy's offensive units. But in the chaos of the battle, Bonner's luck ran out. As his ship darted to avoid an incoming missile, another enemy vessel emerged from the shadows. The blast from the collision was deafening. Bonner's ship was torn apart in an instant, its once glowing hull now reduced to rubble. Ethan's heart skipped a beat as he watched the explosion light up the darkness of space. "Bonner!" yelled Ethan, but there was no response. Bonner's ship was gone, lost to the void. The loss hit Ethan hard. Bonner wasn't just a soldier. He was a friend, a comrade who had fought alongside Ethan in countless battles. The emotional blow was felt by everyone on the team. Bonner had sacrificed himself so that they could continue the mission. His death wasn't just a loss of a life. It was a reminder of what was at stake. They couldn't afford to lose any more members of the team. But there was no time for grief. The Empire's ships were closing in, their weapons primed for another assault. Ethan took a deep breath and gave the order. "All ships, fire at will. We need to break through their defenses." The fleet fired in unison, missiles streaking through the blackness of space. The sound of explosions echoed through the comms as enemy ships were torn apart by the onslaught. Ethan's ship fired its own barrage, launching a cluster of missiles directly at one of the Empire's most heavily fortified stations. The missiles hit with devastating accuracy, causing a massive explosion that lit up the dark expanse. The Empire's station was crippled, but it wasn't enough. More ships were coming, and they were angrier than ever. "Everyone, follow my lead," Ethan shouted. "We're not stopping until we reach their main hub. Keep moving." The team was relentless, their attacks precise and brutal. They were on a mission, and nothing was going to stop them. But as they pushed deeper into enemy territory, they couldn't ignore the growing tension. The battle was far from over, and the Empire wasn't going to let them off so easily. Ethan's ship was struck by a laser blast, sending shockwaves through the hull. The impact rattled the crew, but they quickly regained their composure. The damage wasn't severe, but it was a reminder that the Empire's retaliation was only going to intensify. Despite the damage, the team pushed forward, their cloaking devices flickering in and out as they moved closer to their target. They knew that they couldn't let up now, not after all they had sacrificed. They had to keep fighting. As the battle raged on, Ethan's thoughts shifted once again to his sister, Ilara. He could feel her presence in his mind, her face flashing before his eyes. She was out there, somewhere, and every moment they spent fighting brought them one step closer to rescuing her. With the Empire's defenses in disarray, Ethan's fleet pushed on, their resolve stronger than ever. The first strike had been successful, but the real test was yet to come. The true battle for Ilara, and for the fate of humanity, was just beginning. The cold vastness of space had become their battleground, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. Ethan couldn't afford to fail, not when his sister's life, and the future of Earth, hung in the balance. The cold, metallic walls of the Galactic Empire's facility loomed before Ethan and his team, a place built for the most sinister of experiments. This was their destination, the high-tech laboratory where Ilara had been held captive, subjected to unimaginable horrors. The mission had come down to this final, desperate strike. Failure was not an option. As the team approached the facility, their stealth ships dropped out of cloaking, appearing as faint shadows against the massive structure. Ethan's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the landscape. They had made it this far, but the hardest part was yet to come. They had breached the Empire's outer defenses, but inside, they would face the full might of the Empire's elite forces, the robotic soldiers, fast, lethal, and unyielding, would be waiting for them. "Ready?" Ethan's voice was calm, though his heart pounded in his chest. He could feel the weight of the mission, of the lives lost to get this far. He had to succeed. His team nodded in unison. "Let's do this," Bonner, one of his most trusted soldiers, said. They moved swiftly, entering the facility's interior with precision. The walls were lined with blinking lights and humming machinery, the air thick with the sound of computers and the faint whir of robotic limbs in motion. The hallway was empty, eerily so, and it didn't take long for the team to realize why. The Empire's elite robotic soldiers were already closing in on them. The first clash came quickly, as if the Empire had been waiting for them. The team didn't hesitate. They opened fire, their advanced combat suits enhancing their speed and accuracy. The laser weapons fired with blinding precision, streaking through the air and hitting their targets with explosive force. Yet the robotic soldiers didn't flinch. They absorbed the hits with cold efficiency, their mechanical bodies unharmed by the blasts. Ethan raised his weapon and fired, a bolt of energy striking the nearest robot square in the chest. The robot staggered, but its movements were quick, almost unnatural. It retaliated with a sweeping motion, its glowing red eyes locked on Ethan as it aimed its own weapon. "Watch out," Bonner shouted, diving in front of Ethan. The robot's blast hit Bonner with full force, sending him crashing into the metal wall with a grunt. Ethan's breath caught in his throat, but there was no time to mourn. His team pressed on, fighting back with everything they had. The high-tech combat suits they wore enhanced their strength and agility, but they were still only human. The robots, with their near-invulnerable frames and deadly precision, were an entirely different threat. The fight raged on as the team pushed deeper into the facility, each step bringing them closer to Ilara. Ethan's mind was focused, but his thoughts kept drifting back to his sister. She was out there somewhere, locked away in one of the high-tech labs, suffering at the hands of the Empire. He had to reach her. He couldn't lose her, not after everything they had fought for. Finally, they reached the central laboratory, a massive chamber filled with rows of advanced machinery. There, lying on a cold, metallic table, was Ilara. Her body was weak, her skin pale from the cruel experiments she had endured. But her eyes, those eyes, locked onto Ethan's the moment he stepped into the room. Ethan. Her voice was barely a whisper, but to him, it was the sweetest sound in the universe. Ethan's heart clenched as he moved toward her, ignoring the chaos erupting around him. He couldn't believe it. After everything, after the countless battles and sacrifices, he was finally here, finally with her. He reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. "I'm here, Ilara. I'll never let them hurt you again." Tears welled in his eyes as he carefully detached the IV drips and monitoring equipment that had been keeping her sedated. The bond they shared was unbreakable, and in that moment, all the pain, all the suffering, seemed to fade away. She was alive. She was here. But their moment of reunion was short-lived. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the chamber as the facility's automated defenses activated. The doors slammed shut behind them, locking them inside. "Get ready," Ethan shouted. He pulled Ilara close, making sure she was shielded from the ongoing battle. The robotic soldiers were closing in, and there was no escape from the death trap they were now in. Ethan's team formed a protective circle around Ilara, their weapons raised and ready. The enemy was relentless, and the robots began pouring into the lab, their metallic feet clanging on the floor with every step. There were more of them now, their red eyes glowing with malice as they advanced, their weapons primed for the kill. "Stand your ground," Ethan yelled to his team. The battle had escalated into pure chaos. The team fought with everything they had, using their enhanced combat suits to dodge and weave through the incoming fire. But the robots were too strong, and the facility was too well fortified. Laser blasts streaked past them as Ethan and Bonner fired back, taking down several robots in quick succession. But just as they seemed to gain ground, the reinforcements arrived. A massive robot, easily twice the size of the others, emerged from the shadows. It was heavily armored, with weapons mounted on its arms and shoulders. "This is bad," Bonner muttered, his voice tense. Ethan's eyes flicked to the control panel at the far end of the lab. If they were going to make it out alive, they had to disable the facility's security systems. But the panel was on the other side of the room, and the giant robot was standing between them and their only hope for survival. "Cover me," Ethan commanded, turning to Bonner. "I'll get to the panel." Ethan dashed across the room, using his suit's enhanced speed to dodge incoming laser blasts. He leaped over a fallen robot, landing in front of the control panel. His hands flew over the keys, trying to bypass the security system. Sweat dripped down his face as the giant robot charged toward him, its massive weapon primed. "Ethan, move," Bonner shouted, firing his weapon at the robot. But the blasts had little effect on the heavily armored machine. Ethan's fingers danced across the keyboard as he finally cracked the system. The doors to the lab hissed open, and the robotic soldiers paused, their movements faltering. The system had been shut down. "We're out of time," Ethan said, his voice tight with urgency. "Let's go." The team formed a protective line around Elara, guiding her toward the now open doors. But as they neared the exit, the giant robot launched a final devastating attack. The blast hit Bonner, sending him flying across the room. "No," Ethan shouted, but there was no time to mourn. They had to escape. With Elara in tow, Ethan pushed forward, the team's remaining members fighting to cover their retreat. Laser fire exploded around them as they ran, the sound of battle still raging behind them. They burst through the doors, escaping the Empire's clutches, barely alive, but together. They had done it. Elara was free. The rescue was complete. But the war was far from over. The Galactic Empire would come for them, but for now, they had won. And Ethan would never stop fighting. For his sister, for humanity, and for their future. The battle for Elara's freedom had only just begun. Though the Galactic Empire had faced a heavy defeat at the hands of the humans, their loss was not a simple one. The Empire was powerful, and their wrath would be swift and unforgiving. As Ethan and his team prepared to head back to Earth with Elara in tow, they knew that the Galactic Empire would not let this act of defiance go unpunished. The war, in many ways, had escalated. The rescue mission had been a success, but it had left a trail of destruction that would not easily be erased. The message that humanity sent to the Galactic Emperor was clear. "You tortured one of us, and we warned you. Next time, we won't stop. Run." As Ethan and the survivors of the mission looked to the stars, they knew the consequences of their actions would be dire. Yet they also understood the weight of the message they had sent. For the first time in centuries, the humans had stood up against an empire that had long viewed them as weak, insignificant, and easily crushed. The time for underestimating humanity was over. Back in the Galactic Empire's throne room, the Emperor was furious. The message had arrived, not as a threat, but as a declaration of war. His once unshakable confidence faltered as he watched the images of the battle that had unfolded in the high-tech facility, the footage of the humans stealing away with Elara, and the devastating loss of his elite robotic soldiers. The images were clear. Humans were no longer the helpless prey they had once been. How dare they? The Emperor roared, his voice booming through the darkened chamber. His hand slammed onto the command console, sending tremors through the room. His advisors, a group of emotionless figures clad in black, remained silent, their eyes fixed on the Emperor. The message had struck a nerve deep within him, and for the first time, the Emperor felt a deep sense of fear. "Prepare the AI fleets. Send them after the humans," the Emperor barked. He turned his gaze toward the vast windows that offered a view of the Empire's sprawling city. "We will crush them for this. We will show them the true power of the Galactic Empire." The plans were set in motion quickly. The Emperor's elite AI forces were deployed to track down the humans. The vast array of warships, enhanced with cloaking technologies and advanced weaponry, were mobilized to intercept any human ships trying to escape the Empire's reach. They were relentless, and their goal was clear. Humanity had declared war, and the Empire would stop at nothing to extinguish this defiance. Back aboard the stealth ships, Ethan and his team felt the weight of the coming storm. Their mission had been a success, but now they were racing against time. They knew that the Galactic Empire would not take their rebellion lightly. The battle they had fought was just the beginning, and there would be no going back. As they neared the edge of the Galactic Empire's territory, their scanners began to pick up strange signals. At first, the team dismissed them as normal interference, but as the readings grew stronger, Ethan's instincts told him something was wrong. He turned to Bonner, his most trusted soldier. "Are we being followed?" Ethan asked, his voice low but urgent. Bonner scanned the monitors, his brow furrowing as he analyzed the data. "It's not good. They've sent everything after us. The Empire knows we're here. We need to move. Now." The air in the ship grew tense as the crew prepared for what was about to come. Ethan's hand gripped the control panel, his heart racing. The reality was setting in. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. It was a fight for survival. The Empire's warships appeared in the distance, cutting through the cold vacuum of space like predators closing in on their prey. They were fast, and their cloaking devices made them nearly impossible to detect. But the humans weren't going down without a fight. Ethan had one advantage. The same cloaking technologies that had allowed them to infiltrate the Empire's facility would now be used to help them escape. "Activate stealth mode," Ethan commanded, his voice steady despite the mounting pressure. "Get us out of here." The ship's cloaking system engaged with a soft hum, and the sleek, advanced vessel disappeared from the Empire's radar. But the chase was far from over. The Empire's ships were relentless, and the humans had to use every trick in the book to avoid their detection. "Deploy the AI drones," Bonner called out. "We need to create a diversion." The sleek, metallic drones shot out from the side of the ship, their high-speed engines igniting as they rocketed toward the enemy fleet. These drones were programmed to confuse and mislead the Empire's sensors, creating a false trail for the warships to follow. For a moment, it seemed as though the Empire had been fooled. Their ships veered off course, chasing the drones into the depths of space. But the diversion was only temporary. The Empire's ships quickly recalibrated and resumed their pursuit. The humans' cloaking technology allowed them to stay hidden for a while longer, but it wasn't enough to guarantee their safety. The distance between the human fleet and the Empire's ships was closing fast. "Ethan, they're catching up," Bonner shouted. The urgency in his voice was unmistakable. Ethan's mind raced as he looked over the ship's systems. They had one shot at this. He turned to his crew and barked orders. "We can't outrun them, but we can outsmart them. We're going to use their own system against them." Ethan's plan was simple but risky. He would lead the Empire's fleet into a treacherous asteroid field, an area that was too dangerous even for the Empire's advanced ships. But the humans had one thing the Empire didn't: an intimate knowledge of space's many dangers. They could navigate the asteroid field with precision, using their advanced systems and knowledge of the terrain to avoid the deadly obstacles. The Empire, however, would struggle to keep up. The ship veered toward the asteroid belt, the massive rocks spinning in all directions. Ethan's hands flew over the control panel as the ship dipped and swerved, narrowly avoiding collisions. The ship's cloaking device flickered as it passed through the dense field, making it harder for the Empire to track their movements. "Hold on tight," Ethan warned, his voice calm but filled with tension. The Empire's ships followed, but they were not prepared for the deadly obstacles in their path. One by one, the warships collided with the asteroids, their cloaking devices failing as debris scattered in all directions. The humans, meanwhile, maneuvered with ease, their stealth ships darting through the chaos. "We did it," Bonner shouted, a grin spreading across his face. Ethan allowed himself a small, satisfied smile. They had escaped, at least for now. The Empire had underestimated them, but this was only a temporary victory. They knew the war was far from over, and that the Galactic Empire would stop at nothing to destroy them. The message they had sent to the Empire had been clear, and the humans had warned them. "We will not be intimidated. Run while you still can." As the humans made their way back to Earth, the battle lines were drawn. The war had just begun, and the stakes had never been higher. The Galactic Empire would come for them, but they were ready. Together, humanity would stand tall against the greatest threat the universe had ever known. The war between humanity and the Galactic Empire had left its marks on both sides, but as the humans returned to Earth, they brought with them something more valuable than just victory. They had gained respect. Earth had become the symbol of resilience, strength, and defiance. The Galactic Empire had underestimated them, but now the universe would learn just how powerful humanity could be when pushed to the edge. The journey back to Earth had been long and tense. Ethan and his team were on high alert, knowing that the Empire would not take their defeat lightly. Every sensor on their ship was scanning for any signs of enemy movement. The space around them had grown quiet, almost eerily so. But the humans had made it through, alive, victorious, and carrying with them a message for the entire galaxy. As their ship descended back into Earth's atmosphere, the planet below them seemed to pulse with a new energy. The cities, the people, all of Earth was standing tall, ready for whatever came next. Earth was no longer the helpless, insignificant planet it had once been in the eyes of the Empire. The time for submission had passed. Now, humanity had a taste of victory, and they were determined to hold on to it. The massive fleets that had once been part of the Empire's dominance were now reduced to debris, floating in space, a testament to the power of the humans who had stood against them. Earth's forces had proven that they could go toe-to-toe with the greatest military power the galaxy had ever known. But the victory came at a price. Lives had been lost, friends and allies had fallen, and sacrifices had been made. The war was not over, it was only beginning. Ethan stood on the deck of the command ship, looking out over the horizon. Beside him, Ilara, now free from the Empire's clutches, stood in quiet reflection. The winds of Earth felt different now, less like the winds of a planet waiting to be invaded, and more like the winds of a world ready to defend itself. The air was filled with a sense of accomplishment, but beneath that was an undercurrent of tension. The Galactic Empire had suffered a great blow, but it wasn't finished yet. Its emperor, sitting in his distant throne room, would not rest until humanity was brought to its knees. But for now, Earth could breathe easier, knowing that they had not only survived the Empire's wrath, but had fought back with an intensity the Empire had never expected. Ethan reached out and pulled Ilara into a tight embrace, his voice filled with both pride and resolve. "We've won," he whispered, his tone steady but laced with a deeper understanding. "But the war is far from over." Ilara nodded, looking up at him with a quiet strength in her eyes. "I know," she replied, her voice soft but certain. "This is just the beginning." It was clear to everyone on Earth that a new chapter was unfolding. The humans had awakened something inside themselves, something they had never fully realized they possessed. They had fought, bled, and sacrificed for their freedom, and now they were ready for whatever came next. The scene was powerful, as Earth's leaders and military personnel gathered to address the nation, acknowledging the human spirit and their newfound place in the galaxy. The people of Earth had proven that no empire, no matter how vast and technologically advanced, could crush them. The world was united in this new era of strength. But even as the humans celebrated their victory, the shadows of the future loomed large. Somewhere out in the cold expanse of space, the Galactic Empire was already regrouping, learning from its mistakes, and planning its next move. The Emperor's eyes were cold with rage, but they were also calculating. He knew that the humans had only just begun to tap into their true power. The war had shifted, but the outcome was still uncertain. Back on Earth, the celebration of their victory was quickly tempered by the reality that the Empire would not rest until they had reclaimed their lost glory. Humanity had demonstrated that they were not to be underestimated, but the Emperor would not allow such defiance to stand. His AI forces were already being restructured, new warships being built, and new weapons being forged. The Empire's hunger for dominance could not be quelled by a single loss. The Empire's spies had already reported back, and the Emperor's throne room was filled with activity. The AI generals, cold and emotionless, were already planning their next strike. The humans had won this round, but the Galactic Empire had far more resources, far more power, and far more at its disposal than they could ever imagine. The Emperor stood, looking out over the vastness of his empire, his expression one of fury mixed with a dangerous resolve. His hands, gnarled from years of ruling, rested lightly on the console before him. He would not let the humans go unpunished. They had dared to rise up, and they would pay the price. He turned to his advisors, his voice filled with an icy determination. "We will not let them get away with this. The time for mercy is over. Prepare my forces. It's time to make them understand what happens when they challenge the might of the Galactic Empire." The advisors nodded in unison, their robotic faces emotionless, but their actions swift. The Emperor's wrath would be absolute, and humanity's victory would soon seem like nothing more than a fleeting moment in the vast, dark expanse of space. But for now, the humans had earned a brief respite. They had shown the galaxy that they would not be crushed, that their fight for survival was only beginning. Earth had awakened, and with it, a new era of hope and determination. The Galactic Empire's grip on the galaxy was loosening, and it would not be easy to regain. The story had reached a moment of closure, but it was not the end. The true battle had just begun, and the fate of the galaxy now rested in the hands of those who had the courage to fight for their freedom. The Emperor may have been preparing for his next move, but humanity was ready. They had learned the price of peace, and they were prepared to fight for it. As the humans set their sights on the future, the sky above them held endless possibilities. The war was not over. It was just beginning. And humanity, once thought weak, was now the force that could change the galaxy forever.